I'm here with Clay Faircloth, an independent candidate for Congress for Tennessee's 6th District. Clay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Luke. Thanks for having me. Great to be here on the Empathy Politics podcast.
Perfect. Well, I want to start off the interview by giving you a chance to introduce yourself, talk about your connection to Tennessee, and what is inspiring you to run for Congress.
Well, great. Thanks again. Clay Faircloth. I am a lifelong Tennessean and Nashvilleian. I was born here in Nashville, and I still live here today. My wife and I, we've been married 30 plus years. We have 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and 1 on the way. So we count 4 on that. Hopefully, God is good, and we're blessed with that 4th one soon. We are just excited to be a part of the community here in Middle Tennessee, and we want to leave a legacy. And so our desire to see change, to see our society to move forward, and as one people, has driven me over the course of the last 2 campaigns to run for this office in District 6 for Congress. And so we are strongly considering looking at this possibility again for 2026 because I still care about our community, still care about our people, still care about our families, our freedoms, and our futures.
All right, Clay. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your vision for District 6 and also your vision nationally. Obviously, Congress is a national office, so I'd just love to hear a little bit about your general positions, what you'd like to get done in Congress for Tennessee and for our country.
Again, the main reason I ran for office the first time was I cared about our community, our families, our futures, our finances. All of those things were super important to me. But I also wanted to help focus us on becoming more unified as a nation. In 2015, I dropped out of social media, got off of Facebook because I saw all the dissension and all the hatred and all the hatefulness that was going on, and it was just something that I didn't want to be a part of. What I try to do in anything in my life is I try to be a difference maker. And so I wanted to get back involved in people's lives and in our community in some sort of way where I could be a positive influence. And I believe there's more that draws us together that we have in common as a people. There's obviously reasons for us to be Republicans and Democrats. We have very strong feelings and emotions about things that are super important to us. But at the end of the day, bottom line, we're humans. Whether we're Republicans, Democrats, or independents, or whatever name that we claim to put beside ours, we're all humans. We all deserve to be treated with respect and dignity and given the honor and the dignity that God bestowed upon us and the inalienable rights that not only He, but our Constitution guarantees to us. And so those are the reasons that more than anything drives me to want to serve our nation. And so that's why I'm running too, is I want to see some noticeable change in District 6. I want to see some investment, some opportunities. And the people, I believe, are ready for a change. They're ready to see some investments. They want to see people that care about them and their way of life again. And I'm the kind of person, I grew up in the city here in Nashville, but I grew up on a farm. And I was raised by a grandfather that taught me what it means to till the soil and grow crops and get the abundance from the fruit and the yield of the harvest. And so those are things that are important to the rural folks in our land as well. And so I'm the perfect candidate, I believe, to bring District 6 to the future and be the perfect candidate to represent each and every one of us that live in District 6.
So when I met you initially, it was at a campaign event in East Nashville, Tennessee. I was intrigued by your position as a moderate in terms of representing both rural and urban communities and riding that line. And it makes me think of the last election cycle in 2024. Obviously, Democrats didn't perform as well as they had hoped. And now it seems that the party is sort of split. On one side, you have people who think that the Democrats should go more into the progressive wing, appeal more to the progressive wing of the party. And you have some people who said the Democrats went too far left. They didn't appeal to people on issues like the economy and immigration. And I tend to fall in the camp of people who believe that the Democrats need to moderate. Obviously, they put forward one of the most far-left candidates possible in Kamala Harris, being that her voting record in the Senate was one of the most progressive of all time. So I just want to get your insight on what you think the future of the Democratic Party looks like. Do they need to dig more into the progressive far left values of that side of the party, or do they need to moderate and appeal to more independent-minded voters, more moderate voters in rural communities?
Right. Well, so 2024, if you look at the most recent history, 30, 40 years of party politics, you would see that what happened with Vice President Harris being chosen as the nominee for president of the Democratic Party, it wasn't a very democratic process. And so had that played out the way that it probably should have, normally would have, she would not have been the candidate that would have been presented as the nominee to run against Donald Trump. I don't believe. That's the situation that we had. Of course, lots of people jumped on board and supported her and her candidacy, and we saw other far-left candidates win primaries, like the one in District 6 here in Tennessee. People that have little to no experience or anything, but just claiming that far-left mantra or that far-left progressive voice, that message of extremism. And that's what drove the people to the polls in the primaries. That's what drove the support behind Kamala Harris. But that's not where the majority of Americans live. That's not where we reside in our reality. I don't believe that we're to the other extreme either, to the far, far right, of course. But there are people that live on both of those extremes. And that's what freedom allows for. But it doesn't make any sense or common sense for people to live on the extremes if we want to begin to move our country forward. Now, if we want to stay divided, if we want to stay separated, if we want to stay extremely apart from one another, then we're going down the right road. But if we do want to move together as a nation and move forward as one, then we have to come together on the common ground that we do stand on. And there's foundational principles that all of us stand on again, which are human decency, regardless of whether you live in Carthage, Tennessee, or in East Nashville, right? There are principles, human dignity principles, that all of us believe in. And so those are the things that I believe are going to get us back on track. Now, I'm not sure the Democratic Party will be able to get back on track in District 6.
Right. Building off of what you said in terms of our politics becoming more and more polarized, I see that myself anecdotally, and the data also reflects that. And I think a lot of this is being driven by social media, the way that the social media algorithms are pushing us further and further down rabbit holes that play to our own confirmation bias. And so a lot of times what happens in these algorithms is that you actually don't see the other voices outside of your own circle. And so you get a distorted view of what the country actually believes. If all you see all day on social media are people who and voices that agree with you, you might not even know or understand that there are plenty of voices out there that don't see things the same way. So in a primary situation, you might have primary voters really excited by a candidate that speaks to the far wing of either party. But in the general, it may not work out so much because they've been living in their own bubble. So I just want to get some of your thoughts on if you see this phenomenon as well, and how you as a candidate can branch out of this polarization trap.
Luke, thanks for that question, man. So I believe that this is kind of the social media phenomena and information technology has taken this social phenomena to a different level, I believe. So I think for generations, we as people have isolated ourselves or associated ourselves with people that look like us, talk like us, act like us, because we're more comfortable when we're around people that reflect the same values and things that we think are important too. So now, because of information technology, this is stuff that's like it's on steroids. And so everybody sees all the different opportunities to be selective in their friends and the things that they're looking at, the time that they're spending on things that, again, that they believe, that they validate who they are and the kind of things that they believe, the activities that they want to take part in. And so they're even more consumed in this. But this has been something it's not a new phenomenon, I don't believe. It's just, again, something that's been put on steroids. It's on a higher level because of the social media. And it does. And so what we have to do as people is to notice that, just like alcoholics have to notice that they are alcoholic before they can, address the issue. We have to understand how these things are controlling us, but also how our own actions and behaviors control how we see things as well. And so we should do more things to kind of come outside of ourselves. And I believe as a Christian that we should be serving others, whether they look like us, talk like us, or act like us. And that kind of humbles you and gets you into a situation where you can learn about diversity and things of that nature. But every one of us needs to expose ourselves to new opportunities and new people and new ideas so that we're not siloed, so that we're not pigeonholed into just one belief and why we believe like this, because isolation is what drives violence and disruption to society. And we have to have unity and that working together. And we can't have that unless we strive to work together to come to some sort of knowledge about one another so we can begin to move forward as a nation, as a people.
So I totally agree with you on your perception of this phenomenon as it stands in our social life. But bringing it onto the political sphere, I think that sometimes each individual party can get caught up in trying to appease just the most extreme minority of voices in their own primary process, that it causes them to not put forward the best candidate for the general election. And I think that we've seen that here in Tennessee as well. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your plan to appeal to both the minority progressive voices, but also the other voices and other people that deserve representation as well. So more rural communities, more moderate voices, and more independent voters.
Right. So again, when we were first presented with this opportunity a few years back when the congressional districts were redistricted, if you will, or some people would say gerrymandered. And a lot of people were up in arms and so upset because Nashville was going to lose their representation, their power. But I was pretty excited about it because I saw it as an open opportunity, an open door possibly for some new people, some new blood, some new ideas. And one of the things that I had hoped to do would to be like a Jim Cooper and represent all of Nashville, represent, the west side, the east side, the north side, the south side, all the different groups of people. And that would include all different walks of life when it comes to political parties too. And that's just who I am as a candidate. That's not trying to appeal to a base or anything of that nature. And obviously being a naive politician, that's not exactly how it worked out. And what we've learned is that in District 6, you have a strong Democratic primary base that comes out and votes that's strictly, presumptually, mostly the East Nashville folks, the eastern part of Davidson County, that's included in District 6. Now, there's 18 other counties besides the portion of Davidson County that is included in District 6 too. And most of those counties are very rural. Some of the cities are larger, like Gallatin in Sumner County is growing quite considerably. But for the most part, there are rural areas, and they, for the most part, don't really vote in the primaries. Now, I've got ideas on why that is, but I'll just keep that to myself for now. But they don't vote in the primaries. And so what we've learned in the last two races is that East Nashville, the eastern part of Davidson County, is the deciding factor for the candidate that wins the Democratic primary in District 6. And what we've learned in the last two general election cycles is that liberal candidate, that far left candidate that was chosen each of the last two cycles, has gotten their lunch ate. The outcome has not been anywhere near what those folks in eastern Davidson County had hoped for.
Right.
Yeah, and so I, as a moderate candidate, I tried to appeal to both sides and to appeal to their senses, really, to not cut their nose off to spite their face by electing a candidate that had no chance of winning in the general election. I felt like being a rural urban candidate, being someone who had an understanding of all of the issues in District 6 and someone who could appeal across party lines, both rural and urban, Republican or Democrat, that I would be and still am the best choice for representing all of the people in District 6. And so that's why we're strongly considering giving it another option. But that eastern part of Davidson County and the primary situation is an example of people coalescing around their values and their ideas, even though there's no possible chance of that value or idea getting elected and being able to make a difference in their lives and the lives of their children and their communities.
Thinking about the common ground that you're talking about, I am becoming worried that it's being eroded and that we're losing some of it. An example would be a topic that's maybe a little bit difficult but important nonetheless: political violence. I think that we've been seeing a rise in both political violence on the left and the right, but also in people who are defending political violence. And I think that of any common ground, the commitment to the principle that we won't use violence in our politics, the whole point of our politics is to get things done through words and not violence, needs to be the fundamental building block that we create our democracy on top of. And so we see this in things like Luigi Mangione or Aaron Bushnell, where it seems like a contingent of the left is encouraging of these actions, apologizes for these actions, defends these actions. And so I just want to get your thoughts on political violence in general, and if we can come back together on this commitment to nonviolence and peaceful protest and debate rather than extremism.
Right. Well, I say all the time, and everybody understands the impact that words have. They not only impact others, but they impact the way we feel and believe about the things that we say and do. And if you think about the political language that's been in our landscape for the last couple of decades, you've heard the words, violent words like, for instance, I will fight for you. I will defend our values. I'll go to the trenches and fight. I'll fight, right? Fight like hell. We've all heard those terms. We've heard that language. And it's incendiary. It ignites within people emotions that sometimes they can't control. We know how emotions can take over a crowd, and not just those on January 6th, but years past too.
Sure.
And how that happens. So think of how can we change the word fight to a more better word choice that still says that we're going to defend you. We're still going to go to the nth degree to do what we can to make sure you get what you need. So why can't we use the word help instead of fight? I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you all I can. I'm going to assist you in every way. Those sorts of words are it'll help turn down the temperature. It will. It brings down the temperature in the room. It helps lower those emotions, and it gives people a chance to be able to understand with understanding ears. And the Bible says just because you can see and hear doesn't mean that you have eyes to see and ears to hear. And so if you're infuriated, if you're upset about something, you're so blinded by rage. You've ever heard that term before, right?
Yeah.
And so people get so fired up in these political speeches and all these rah things that they're going to do. And really, we're here to help people. We're here to make a difference. And if we would use those sorts of languages, those sorts of words, I feel like that, again, would be helpful.
So for myself, I lean center-left, a liberal in the traditional sense. But I have a lot of friends who are right-leaning, maybe Republican, who voted for Trump. In the circles that I run in, at least, there's some things that they are disappointed with in the Trump administration, whether that's his meme coins and messing around with stuff like Bitcoin instead of what they would prefer, which might be the gold standard, or strikes against Iran, or maybe it's the Epstein files, or it could be the national debt, ballooning the national debt. Whatever it may be, there are things that the right has found disappointing from the Trump administration. Now, I think that this is an opportunity for somebody who, even if we don't see eye to eye on everything, maybe can actually get some of these voters who are disappointed with the Trump administration on issues that we can agree on, such as the national debt. I mean, Bill Clinton, Democrat, this was the last time that the budget was balanced and that we weren't spending more than we were taking in revenue. So I think that there are places where these voters are winnable. So I would just love to hear your thoughts on what you can do to win over some of these disaffected Trump voters who maybe want to take a step away from the MAGA movement and are looking for somebody who will actually follow through on their commitments.
Well, it's hard to please everybody all the time. It really is. And even as everywhere Trump can be on the board, he's this or he's that, depending on what crowd he's in front of and depending on how many votes he needs for this race or that race or his candidate or that candidate to get elected. And so it's important for us to see that once he gets what he needs from people, he doesn't care. He really doesn't care. He promised, he didn't lie to anybody. He's being very transparent about he was going to deport people, right? But he claimed that it was going to be criminals. And we need to be compassionate, caring country, nation when it comes to the situations in other nations that folks are going through, whether it's due to corruption in their governments, lack of education among the populace, industrialization and information technology not reaching that area, or climate change that's caused disruption to communities and different things like that due to lack of water or aridness of the land and things of that nature, because these communities in South American countries that are largely the issue with the immigration at our southern border are due to lack of opportunity. And so I feel like as a nation, we do need to be caring and compassionate, but we do need to follow the laws of the land. And those laws need to be caring and compassionate as well. There should be no separation of families. There should be care for people as far as meeting their immediate medical needs, their nutritional needs, for survival, for housing, and things of that nature. But that would just be for a temporary, short amount of time until they could be seen and processed and understood whether or not they would be allowed to be in our country to work and or to stay for whatever time period that was allowed. So, but those things are something that we need to work on. Those are obviously sealing the border and shooting people that are trying to come across is not a very humane answer to how to handle the immigration
or deporting people without due process who might even be of legal status.
Of course. And, we're grabbing folks off the street because they're brown right now. And, the list could go on if we allow it to. But if we allow it to happen to these brown people, it's going to be easier for the next group of people and easier for the next group of people for us to allow that to happen. And that's not saying very much about a people that claim to be a Christian nation.
Well, thank you for being here with me today, Clay. I wish you luck on your run.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate being a part of this opportunity here with your podcast. Thanks.
Appreciate it.